place. It's full of adventures. I wanted to share one interesting story with you. Not just doing business here is interesting and regarding startups, but culturally as well. I went to one of my friend's apartments for a dinner party. She lives in an old block of Soviet apartments on the 19th floor. And I entered her apartment, and straight away, there was a strange smell. And the expats here, or the Muscovites here, will know of a phrase they say, only in Russia. This is a great example. And straight away, I had to admit, I said, Leah, there's a really strange smell in your apartment. It smells a little bit like a farmyard. And she looked quite embarrassed, but she said, actually, Martin, it's funny you should mention the farmyard, because only yesterday I saw a horse walking up the stairs. And as soon as she said that, all of a sudden there was a horse living on the 20th floor in this block of apartments in Moscow. There's more stories like that to come. But first of all, I will pass you on to Luigi, where he'll talk about the speakers as well. Thank you very much. Only in Russia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our first panel today. We are going to introduce the main subject of the conference, which is talking about new frontiers of entrepreneurship. We have an ambitious plan for this panel, and what we would like to do is to bring some light on the current European entrepreneurial ecosystem. And we would like to give you today a perspective both from the government and the entrepreneur on what do they think about how Europe is performing on entrepreneurship. If we want to put it simple in context, what are the entrepreneurs? Well, they are those that are really driving the economy, and they are those that are really making our regions and the place we live in good places with good welfare and good economic conditions. So they are the engine. And one definition I particularly like about who are the entrepreneurs and how would you define entrepreneurship is the one that I borrowed from Stevenson from Harvard University, which has been going around for more than 20 years, meaning that possibly there is something good about this definition. And what he says is that the entrepreneurs are those that are successfully on the pursuit of a business opportunity that goes beyond the resources that they currently control. I think this says a lot about what a good entrepreneur should be, both in terms of seeing things that others don't see, i.e. an opportunity, but also in terms of being able to rally a lot of people around him and a lot of people around the opportunity, people that he cannot control, so he has somehow to convince. And I think this stands for good entrepreneurs as for good leaders in all senses. Entrepreneurs are also at the top of the agenda because more and more we see that there is a need for them to be role models. We will be talking what's happening in Europe, but so far entrepreneurs are not depicted, are not portrayed as those that really behave in a good way. There are more people that maybe are earning a lot of money, and then maybe that you don't know what they're doing with this money, and so on and so forth. Whereas in other cultures, in other countries, entrepreneurs are really role models for society, and therefore we hope that this will come to Europe as well. There are a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs these days. I just listed a few. If you look at more what is, let's say, the economic and social environment, there are a lot of opportunities in what is called social entrepreneurship, but also impact entrepreneurship, the People, Profit, Planet, P, that it's really now a growing area and a growing sector with all the concerns we have for the environment, for the world we live in, for the challenges we are facing with population. So really great opportunities in this area. But there are also more if you like, traditional business opportunities in some sectors, like health. There is huge growth in everything that relates to biotech and medical devices, energy, all what relates to clean energies, renewable energies, and so on and so forth, and a growing need to educate the billions of young people that are coming to the scene and that are really in need of good level of education and cannot afford this with the current methods of education we have. And also, of course, even because we are hosted in this place, but more in general, the digital economy is still booming and is still growing. For European entrepreneurs, we also have some challenges. I think there are mainly two challenges. The first is about the fact that we have new global players. So we have other forces that are joining the market that maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago were not there, and they are now becoming really quite strong. And actually the way they look at Europe today is maybe the way Europe used to look at them 20 years ago. So this is really changing very fast. But not only they are competing with us in the market, but the high growth markets, what is happening as a trend that's quite interesting, they're offering great opportunities and great incentives for good European entrepreneurs to go and thrive into these high growth markets and so leave Europe and develop their companies over there. Awareness about entrepreneurship is growing. I just listed a few major things that are happening from the government point of view, but also from the entrepreneur's point of view. We have the Innovation Union that is coming, and we will be talking about this in a moment. 2014-2020, the European Union major initiative is on innovation, just to put the emphasis on what Europe needs. The Jobs Act has been already mentioned in the previous session. It's the new act that has been just passed by the US administration, again powering helping entrepreneurship to grow. We have some phenomena that are bottom-up that didn't exist 5 years ago, like the Global Entrepreneurship Week that was launched by the UK government and by the Kaufman Foundation only in 2008. And that collects now more than 140 countries, and there are close to 1 million events happening every year, the third week of November, just talking about entrepreneurship, something that was unthinkable only 5 years ago. And similarly, with a little bit more top-down, typical European approach, but also the European Union is organizing the SME Week around May to promote entrepreneurship. So definitely the awareness is raising there. I think also the pressure for entrepreneurship is mounting. If you look at this study from Ernst & Young that was published during the G20 Young Entrepreneur Forum a few months ago, they had a question: do you think that the culture in your country encourages entrepreneurship? And you can see what is the reply in India, China, and the US. The average is 55% of entrepreneurs and government people would say yes, and only 10% would say no. And the results for Europe is that only 22% would say yes, and 36% would say no. I believe this says something, how Europe is lagging behind, and I don't have the list with me now, but I can tell you, if you want to look at the study, Europe comes very close to countries you could not even imagine how low we are on this culture of entrepreneurship. The pressure is mounting even because we have tens of thousands of researchers, we have a lot of universities, we have a lot of research centers, we have invested a lot in public support for researchers, and now all of a sudden the budget for sustaining all these research activities purely based on speculative research are not there. So the pressure is mounting for these researchers really to have an impact on the economy, maybe to become themselves entrepreneurs. Definitely a problem Europe is facing and needs to face even more in the future. And finally, there are millions of what we would call the in-between people, those in the age of 45 to 54. There are now, again, probably not even thousands, but millions of them in Europe nowadays not having anymore their own secure and permanent job, and trying to find a way to still, work for the next 20 years in a way that it's producing not only revenues but growth for them, and so on and so forth. And so many of them are looking at the way of entrepreneurship as the good way, either becoming angels or entrepreneurs themselves or something like this. When we look at possible solutions, if it's true that this pressure is mounting, I think that we have more or less three main pillars we need to address. We have two pillars which are probably a little bit out of the scope of today's conference, which is education, especially on entrepreneurship. That is strongly needed. Again, if we refer to the main reports published recently by McKinsey, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, Ernst & Young, and so on and so forth, more than 75% of people would say that yes, education on entrepreneurship should be a must at all levels, starting from primary education. And the second point is that, yes, still taxation is an obstacle. More than 60% of people interviewed globally would say that still not having enough incentives to promote entrepreneurship is still a problem. The main problems we are addressing in this panel today, though, is about access to finance. We know that conventional finance is drying up. Everybody is experiencing how banks are behaving these days. And therefore, people are looking for alternative sources of finance more and more. But early stage finance is still quite difficult in general to access. It's a language problem, not meaning language in the technical sense, but in the sense that there is no level of communication between the entrepreneurs sometimes and the investors, and there is some lack of incentives. On the other side, I think that in the last 3-4 years, Europe has experienced a growth in our market. It's becoming vibrant, it's becoming energetic, and people are really believing that this is something that we should be doing. We've been talking about this for a long time, but perhaps in this period in which things are a little bit more difficult, then it comes a time then acting is really essential. And therefore you see that angel networks, super angels, normal angels, accelerator, crowdfunding, all this, it's somehow growing and booming, and of course not all of this is good, and I think that through the years we will learn that a lot of the hypes that we have today probably will either disappear or fade away or will find their own correct allocation, but definitely, I mean, there is a positive trend with that. So I would like now to introduce our two main speakers. We are still waiting also for a third speaker, but I believe he's not arrived yet. We are very glad to have here, as I said, people that are representing both government side and entrepreneur side. And I would like, first of all, to introduce you Cem Sertoglu. He's a well-rounded entrepreneur from Turkey. He has been starting and launching and successfully exiting companies in the field of social networks and e-commerce in Turkey and in the region around Turkey. And he's now active in many different areas as a venture capitalist. He was telling me just has also 2 investments here in Russia, so he's quite knowledgeable about the market here. So I believe it will be really interesting to hear his perspective as an entrepreneur on the subject. Cem, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. I actually, when I saw the topics for today's conversation, all of my notes almost fully correspond to Luigi's points. But just wanted to share with you, how sort of entrepreneurship, the notion of entrepreneurship in my eyes has been developing over the last 5 years or so, through which I've been more of an investor, and then the decade before where I was a technology entrepreneur. one thing I'm noticing is since 2008, this notion of entrepreneurship has come really to the forefront, mainly because I think it fits a lot of people's agendas. On the one hand, the notion of entrepreneurship, high-impact entrepreneurship, fits the sort of Anglo-Saxon notion of this individualistic determinism, and it's capitalistic, yet not big business. Big business is of course, hurt a lot of people in 2008, and the notion around sort of big banks, big deals, complex products, etc., has been met with a lot of skepticism lately. Whereas the story of an entrepreneur who is, like Luigi's description, going out to access resources beyond their current control is a very interesting story. Entrepreneurial activity has also been very proven effective in job creation, and especially in Europe these days, that's a very, very critical topic. And finally, it's almost become like, in a way, like world peace. Everybody wants to be associated, wants to be a part of it. I know in one case, in a country in the region where different ministries are sort of haggling over who controls the sort of R&D and entrepreneurial budgets and resources under their domain. So what has been the effect of this increase in attention to entrepreneurship and trying to channel resources towards the idea is, I think one of the net effects is that there's now an increased level of noise, which I think might be a bit of a problem for both entrepreneurs and investors and people who are trying to map out the landscape and understand who the effective players are, whether they are sort of law firms, investment banks, accounting firms, agencies that are tasked with supporting entrepreneurial efforts, especially on the science and technology side. I also want to speak a little bit about the funding picture in our region as I'm experiencing it. And please, understand that I'm coming from a technology and especially specifically ICT world. So I think some of these observations are probably relatively unique to the area that I operate in. But one thing we're seeing is that the amount of activity in the very early stages, the seed stage, angel stage, has dramatically increased. I personally witnessed the Turkish landscape, and I can't tell you how incredibly dramatic that change is. I think one of the reasons is, there's alpha seekers who are looking for returns constantly, where the risk-free return notion has dropped. And with the decreased hurdle of creating, at least trying out a technology venture having come down with cloud infrastructure access, we see many more players who are getting in the game and starting to risk their personal capital in maybe smaller chunks, but enough to get to a product market question mark to see if their the business that they're thinking about or wanting to support does really have legs. And we're seeing, I think, very interesting examples of this. Probably most dramatic example around the world is Instagram, that has gone with very little funding into a very quick exit. So as this type of activity, these type of success stories are getting more and more visible in the press, the amount of attention that's being paid to high-impact technology ventures is increasing. And the fact that these companies are extremely capital efficient at the earlier stages means that this fragmented angel investment activity is finding many targets. So I think a lot of fortunate entrepreneurs are able to get their initial round of funding to see if their idea is going to meet with market success. The other healthy activity we're seeing is at the relatively late stage of investing. And I think that's being driven by the increase in global visibility. One dramatic example is the increase of technology blogs. 5 years ago, you only really had sort of a Mashable, TechCrunch, maybe a few others that were covering what's going on in the technology world, and they were, of course, extremely focused on the U.S. market. Today, I think every country I can think of in Europe has local bloggers that are very effectively covering the early stage technology ventures, as well as late stage. And they even have English language versions of their publications. So as an English speaker, you can pretty much monitor, the progress of the different types of companies in Europe. So what this has meant for global investors is their ability to cover wider geographies and be able to invest in opportunities that are beyond their core markets has really increased. I think for the global private equity firms and late-stage venture capital, the growth capital firms, the successes of companies like Summit or Tiger Global has met a lot of attention. I think there's quite a bit of envy going on in the traditional late-stage venture industry for players who have stepped in very early and caught big successes like Tiger's successes in Russia or Summit's successes in Europe like Van Prive. And what that has meant is that there is this big gap in the range where you have local smaller players and you have global later stage investors. This leaves the sort of 5 million ticket range relatively open, and it really corresponds to the traditional US Series A, Series B type investors, where there are very few local players that would cover that, and then the global players try to come in later. So that's one area I think that will need development in Europe, especially in the emerging Europe areas. And in preparation for this panel, I was thinking about the role of the government. In Turkey, there are many initiatives that I'm familiar with, but I must be frank. I'm not very involved in the discussions. However, one thing that I'm noticing is that the role that ERISA has played in the US by allocating and encouraging pension funds to invest in venture and R&D related areas is missing very visibly in the region. So I think that might be something that the government might play a role. We have talked about taxation issues, the tax policy. Again, being familiar with Turkey, one of the fantastic factors of investing in Turkey is that long-term capital gains is essentially zero from a tax perspective. So I'm aware that many different tax jurisdictions have similar tax advantages for high-impact entrepreneurship, and I of course believe that that's a positive thing. And finally, again, from personal experience, I think bankruptcy policy is very interesting for investors and entrepreneurs who are in this sort of quick tries, trying to find product market fit with a minimal investment issue, which brings with it naturally a high rate of failure. So making it possible and pragmatic for entrepreneurs to try quickly, and if they have to, fail quickly, I think is also very critical. So that would be my thoughts on the what type of impact government can have on as we go through this sort of new frontiers of entrepreneurship in Europe. And I'll wrap up with that and look forward to any questions that might come up in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jem, for giving us this insight on the entrepreneur's perspective. We're now moving to the government's perspective, and we are really lucky to have here today Jean-David Malo, who is head of unit in DG Research for the area that is looking at access to finance from the perspective of the European Commission and financing innovation. I think it's always controversial to talk about the intervention of the public sector in investing in startup companies, and for sure should not be, as it was said before, something that should go to the level of each individual company. But still, I believe that the role that public sector is playing in this seed and startup phase is really relevant, and Europe is no exception to that. But I was recently told that in the US, thanks to the Small Business Investment Company scheme that was started in 1958, the venture capital industry was really taking off, although there were a lot of billions maybe lost along the way because the scheme was not that great. But still today, out of 1958, about 30% of venture capital activities in the US are still under the management of SBIC-born companies. So you can, either like it or not like it, but you cannot deny that the role of government is quite important, and I think the European Commission is no exception to that. So designing good measures and effective measures, it's really an important role, and we are really now eager to hear what Jean-David has to tell us. Jean-David, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Luigi. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very delighted to be among you this morning. Personally also because my grandfather is coming from this country, so it's a pleasure to be in Russia today for this personal reason. I will be as brief as possible. Nevertheless, you will see that my slides are quite extended, but I promise that I will not present all the slides. And finally, listening to what was said this morning, I decided to change what I will say. First, I would like to underline the fact that things are changing also at the level of the European Commission. You are certainly aware that now, more or less 1 year ago, the Commission has published a communication called Europe 2020 strategy. And this strategy is nothing else than doing more for growth. And I insist on this. Doing more for growth means clearly for the European Commission to do more for entrepreneurship in Europe. Because this is only via entrepreneurship that we will be able to at least preserve our jobs, in the better case to have new jobs, but at least to preserve our job and to create growth for our continent. In this communication, you have seen that we have identified 7 flagship initiatives, and one of them is dedicated to innovation and entrepreneurship. And here I would like to share with you 2 thoughts of 2 different persons. The first one is the chairman of the EIT, the European Institute of Technology and Innovation. And I would like to share this with you because it is in reaction to what was said this morning by one of the speakers. At the question, what is the difference in terms of education between USA or China today and Europe? He answered, we are training managers, they are training entrepreneurs. And this is one of our main challenges. We have to train entrepreneurs in Europe if we want to create more growth. And this is not really what we are doing up to now. Second, certainly, and I mean, I saw in my badge that it is not yet understood that our DG Research, is not called anymore DG Research, it's called DG Research and Innovation. It's not only a change of word, it's a change of mind. Because in the past, and up to now, to a certain extent, because we are still managing the framework program for research and technological development, up to now, what we are doing is we are using money to generate knowledge. This is a definition of making research. But what we'd like tomorrow is to continue to do that, because it's quite important, first of all, to continue to generate knowledge via basic research, via mobility of researchers in Europe, via research infrastructure of excellence. It's quite important. But we have to do more than this. We have to use knowledge and to generate money, which is the definition, to a certain extent, of innovation. So it's a change of mind. And due to this, in our proposal of Horizon 2020, which is a new name of the Framework Programme for Research and Innovation, we have now a new pillar which is fully dedicated to the industrial leadership in Europe, in other words, to support mainly, not exclusively, but mainly entrepreneurs. And going back to what Luigi said in his introduction, in this proposal, it is the first time that we have a program completely dedicated to access to finance. And this is the name of the program, access to risk finance. This issue of access to finance is indeed crucial in Europe, and it's one of the 34 commitments that the Commission has taken in its Communication Innovation Union flagship initiative to improve access to finance in Europe, especially for innovative SMEs. And you will see in some of the slides that I will present you that we would like to do more in this area. I'd like in introduction also to say a few words regarding what Mrs. Dyson said that I fully share. The role of the state, and the Commission is not a state, but the Commission is a public body acting for states. The role of the state is certainly not to invest itself, but the role of the state is to create the condition for a user-friendly and successful ecosystem. And one of the questions, Luigi, that you shared with us before the meeting was, where does it work? It works in some places in Europe. It works in ecosystem where you have various conditions which has been achieved. It works in area where you have high-level research organizations which are working with industry. It works in area where you have the necessary infrastructure to attract investors and to attract companies. It works in area where you have indeed the accelerator you mentioned a few minutes ago. It works in area where you have a relevant fiscal policy. It works also where you have policy authorities which are deeply involved in order to support the entrepreneurs, but where they are not involved in the management of the things implemented by the entrepreneurs. And you have areas. You have areas, for example, very close to the Commission, 50 kilometers to the Commission in Brussels, in Ghent. Look at what was Ghent 20 years ago in the field of biotech, and look at what Ghent is now, 20 years later. It works in München. It works in Sofia Antipolis. It works in various places in Europe where the conditions are pulling together. So is it possible to do more? The answer is yes. The question is how to pool our efforts. In this context, yes, the role of governments is important, but I fully share the fact that indeed governments themselves are not the right people to invest into companies. What Mrs. Dyson said also is that we have to help for the emergence of companies. And here also, I believe that the state has a key role to play. We have proposed at the level of the European Commission to launch what we are calling innovative public procurement. In other words, what we would like to share with member states is the possibility within public procurement to dedicate a share of the budget for SMEs and also in particular for innovative SMEs. This is a way to help the competition of and the competitiveness of some of our SMEs and the emergence of new products and of new companies. And this is something that the Commission has proposed and will continue to propose to Member States. Now, coming to access to risk finance. We have proposed at the end of November 2 programs within the whole package of the Commission proposal for the future budget 2014-2020. These 2 programs are, on one hand, Horizon 2020, the new name of the framework program for research and innovation. On the other hand, the program COSME, which is the new name of the program Competitiveness and Innovation Program dedicated to SMEs. But what is new is that for the first time the 2 programs will work hand in hand, and in particular regarding financial instruments. I will not go through all my slides, I promise. So I will go very quickly to this. What we are proposing is, of course, to support research and innovation via debt and equity financial instruments. I will come in a second to what we are proposing in details. In a program called Access to Risk Finance inside Horizon 2020 with a budget of 4 billion euro. What our colleagues of COSME, I said colleagues because they are in DG Enterprise, are proposing is also an important budget for equity and debt financing for SMEs, but any kind of SMEs, of 1.4 billion euro. The first thing that we would like to do is indeed to support equity funding. Situation of equity in Europe, and in particular in the field of venture capital, is dramatic. Just one figure. 2011, the funds raised in venture capital are coming at 55% from public sources. 55%. Why? Because the private investor has progressively not disappeared, because they are still representing 45%, but they have decreased due to the financial crisis, due also to the modification of the prudential rules. Let's be clear. I mean, the impact of Basel III and Solvency II are there. Does not mean that those decisions were not relevant, but the impact is there. And as a consequence, the market, not only in volume decrease, but the share of the various actors change dramatically. We have to do more, and we have to continue the involvement of public money, because, I mean, we have to maintain this market, but we have to create conditions in order to attract again private investors. In other words, we have to provide incentive downstream and upstream. And this is what we will try to do in our proposal. In order to have a bigger impact, we will merge our budget, our colleague of COSME and of Horizon 2020, within a single financial instrument for equity for SMEs and small mid-caps, which will cover both early stage and growth stage, but where we will ensure that half of the budget will be dedicated to early stage. This is quite important for us, because this is clearly the early stage which is the most difficult area for the time being. What we will propose also is under the debt area, so in other words, loan guarantees, counter guarantees, and so on, is to have a specific and single financial instrument for SMEs and small mid-cap for growth and research and innovation, by pooling there also our efforts from COSME and from Horizon 2020, And where the idea is to build, of course, on the success that we had in the SMEG program under CIP, and on the success that is rising up to now in the sub-facility within the RSFF for small, medium enterprise, which is called RSI, that we have just launched with the EIF and which is providing loans from 25,000 euro up to 7.5 million euro per company. We will perhaps do this also with our colleague of education. Why? Because we believe also that we have to provide financial instruments which are simple of access for an SME. What we are proposing to change also to Member States and to the European Parliament is to simplify the access for an SME. If I am an SME or if I am a young entrepreneur, and if I am looking for debt financing, I must have the possibility to discuss with one interlocutor in my country or in my region. So by pooling our efforts, by having common instruments, we would like to propose a possibility to Member States to indeed implement something easier. I will not enter, because it's not of interest for you, for big loans, into details for big loans, but what I would like to share with you in conclusion is that financial instrument is indeed an instrument important in our policy, but it's not sufficient. Providing loans or ensuring equity funding is not sufficient. As I told you in my introduction, the ecosystem and improving the ecosystem is something even more important. So we have proposed in Horizon 2020 to dedicate also a part of our budget to what we are calling some accompanying measures. Here you have some of the accompanying measures on which we are working and that we are proposing, but it's not an exhaustive list. But I would like to share some of them with you. One of them is indeed what we are calling here investment readiness scheme. Certainly some of you are aware of initiatives like European Tech Tour. It's true that European Tech Tour for the time being is only dedicated to VC funds, some funds of funds, and not enough to business angels, super angels, family offices, and so on. We would like to propose in our future Horizon 2020 accompanying measures, schemes, some support to investment readiness scheme which will embrace all kinds of investors, that will host also business angels, super angels and others. We are working on it, and I hope that we will not be a victim of a cut of our budget by Parliament and Council, and that we will be able to propose this scheme that we consider very important for the future. What is also quite important is to ensure raising awareness. I discussed just before this session with one of you, and we were mentioning Eurostar. You know Eurostar is an initiative under FP7 between the community and Eureka, where we are supporting innovative SMEs. But let's say downstream, not yet for commercialization or expansion. But some of them are very promising. How to ensure that those companies are able to discuss with some investors. It's a question clearly of raising awareness. But the same will apply also in the future with the new instruments that we are proposing in Horizon 2020, which is a kind of SBIR in Europe. I heard also that Mrs. Dyson talked about the American SBIR. We are not calling it SBIR, we are calling it SME instrument, but let's be clear, it is the same kind of instrument with stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And in stage 3, where by nature we will not invest as a public body, we would like to ensure that the SME will have the possibility to discuss with investors for debt or for equity funding. A last one that I would like to mention, and then I will conclude to allow time for discussion, is also to use other possibilities. We heard about crowdfunding this morning. It's a source of funding. But here also, but in other area, I can tell you, I never heard about philanthropic funding. And it's very surprising, because if you look at what happens in some country, philanthropy may be a very important source of funding. I just give you one example. In the health area, in my home country, France, each year, in 2 days, in a philanthropic initiative, they are able to leverage 100 million euro, 100 million euro for scientific research in the field of homeopathy. Because you have a huge organization behind, and because people are interested by certain area. The citizens are interested in certain area. They are ready to invest. It's linked to a certain extent to crowdfunding. So we have to interest them. Of course, in this context, fiscal measures, not only for philanthropic initiative, but also in this area, may play a key role if we want to be able to leverage additional funding. And finally, we have to use also, of course, corporate venturing. We have some very good example in Europe of some companies, some very important corporates who are using this kind of support. Let's be clear, for their business, for their core business. But it creates also some important leverage in certain area. Let me conclude by saying that, as I said in my introduction, the paradigm is changing gradually, but the change is running inside the European Commission. It takes time. It's an administration. Let's be clear among us. It's an administration, so it takes time. But the change is there, and nothing will stop the change. And the change will be even quicker if you are supporting this change. And we need you to make this change a reality. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Jean-David. I'm not sure how we are with timing. I think we're a bit tight, but perhaps we can take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Is there any question? Yes, Brigitte, please.
Thank you very much. Indeed, at EBAN, we're very grateful because I think for the last 10 years, we've been working with DG Enterprise, DG Research to bring this awareness. So thank you very much for this. A question about, there's a lot of discussion about the co-investment and public co-investment, whether or not co-invest should invest directly into the entrepreneurs or via potentially investor groups. So what is the current perspective in the 2020?
So,
yeah, it's working.
it works perfect. Many thanks. So the current perspective is that we will not invest directly, even if legally speaking we can. Legally speaking, we have the possibility to do it, but we don't believe it is the right way. So we will work with what we are calling in our jargon intermediaries. Why intermediaries? Because intermediaries have the skills and the knowledge. Let's be clear, within the Commission, except few people, we have not the knowledge. I mean, we are administrators, we are not entrepreneurs, so we are not investors, but we can help them. So the purpose is certainly not to invest directly. This being said, how will it work for the time being is not definitively set. Why? Just to give you the whole picture. For the first time, the Commission has proposed, in the context of the modification of the financial regulation, to introduce a chapter dedicated to financial instruments. Why? Because we are supporting various activities via financial instruments for more than 10 years now, and surprisingly, in our financial regulation, we had nothing up to now. But evidently, as a direct consequence, we have to discuss this with the Parliament and the Council, and it takes time, and we have some controversial discussion. I will not enter into the details here, but the rules that will be in the financial regulation will determine how in the future we will invest. But according to the discussion that we have for the time being with Council and Parliament, it's clear that we will not invest directly. How will we select the intermediaries is another question that will be fully also and transparently shared with you, because we have announced already that we will design within the Commission what we are calling debt and equity platforms, which are, in other words, in fact, the rules that we will use in order to implement our financial instruments in the field of equity and debt in the future, including the selection of intermediaries. More or less, I don't know what will be the end of the story, but more or less for the time being, certainly it will be a call of expression of interest, fully transparent, with criteria on how we will select them, and the selection within the Commission will be made by Commission representatives and external experts. So this is the way certainly it will work. For the details, we will have the details by the end of the year. Now, complementing finally your question, my answer to your question, with the business angel words, we have also a technical difficulty. With VC funds or funds of funds, I mean, we have in front of us legal bodies. So let's be clear, it helps. With business angels, we have individuals, we have sometimes clubs, but regarding operation, we have within the clubs different configuration according to the operation. So it causes some difficulty, but we are working on it, and we are trying to find a solution, because here it's I mean, in order to have a global approach. One of the possibility, and I will conclude on this, sorry for being long,
No, please.
Is perhaps not to work at EU level, but to work at regional level. Because there it's easier. I mean, I see your problem, huh? But the problem is, if you have a solution with a legal difficulty, I'm very eager. But to work potentially at a regional level, because locally it's easier to have some arrangement. This is why, in this context, we have proposed that within the structural funds, there will be in the future the possibility to pool resources from region to EU level. So in other words, you will have the possibility of bridges between the various instruments.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there one other question maybe we can take? Yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay. The last question. Quick answer anyway, very quick. Yeah, okay, sorry.
We know the importance of ecosystem. You know, in a country where ecosystem is a better ecosystem, we have more angel investing and everything works better. In Europe, that is not the case. Among countries, there is quite a difference in terms of ecosystems. Don't you think one of the roles of the EU Commission should be to sensibilize the governments of countries that are lagging behind in making that? It's more important than money, I think.
I fully share your point of view, sir, and this is exactly what at least the European Commission has proposed within the new proposal for structural funds. For what we are calling, I don't like the term, but what we are calling less developed regions, investment in fields like innovation, renewable energy, sustainable transport are considered as priority, and if the countries are ready to invest in these fields, they will have the possibility of more funding from the European Commission. So we are trying to make some incentive on this area. Now, on the EU fund, as such, here we will continue to work with a competition approach between all the countries. So the idea is to say, for less developed region, please use the structural fund in order to create a kind of stairway of excellence in order to be able to compete with the others. And please, member states, especially of this region, please rearrange your policy. And this is the purpose of the discussion of the policy of each country for the period 2014-2020, which is currently discussed with the Commission and the Member States, and which will lead to the final conclusion regarding support via structural funds. So it's in line with what you are proposing, not focusing only on what we are discussing here, but more globally indeed on the ecosystem.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jean-David, and thank you very much, Jem. I will now hand it over to Martin to introduce the next panel. I believe we have some positive messages here about the European entrepreneurial ecosystem, and we hope that this will be taken forward in the good direction. Thank you all very much.
Dear. I had lots more jokes about Russian culture to tell you, but we are running behind, so they will have to wait. Our next panel discussion is headed up by Paolo. Is Paolo here? Paolo, thank you. Paolo is the EBAN Vice President, and we're talking about the early stage co-investment scheme's successes, challenges, and trends. Paolo, over to you. Thank you, my friend.
Dobry dien. I think I have learned something, and I'd like to share with you these words. I don't know many more words, but just to try my Russian there is always a start, you know. Welcome to this panel about co-investment funds, trends, and challenges. We have this panel started with Konstantin saying that in Russia there is a need for a development of these new co-investment funds with business angels. And unfortunately, I was expecting that today we had this conference and tomorrow it would be announced a co-investment fund. But Konstantin made it in the other way, so it was announced last week. So today, this panel, we should convince the Russian officials of the benefit of this co-investment fund scheme, but Konstantin has done already the work. 1 month ago, myself and Philip Gluntz participated in a video conference with several officials from Russia in order to talk about the Entrepreneurship Week and the benefits of these new schemes. So it was very, very interesting, and in Russia, I think there is a huge potential for business angels and these co-investment funds. Because we are running out of time, and I won't take lots of time because we have 4 speakers, and I think there is still one has not arrived. But however, I would like just to say 2 words about the actual situation in the world. IMF, in its spring forecasted a decline in 0.3% in GDP in the Eurozone. So we are living tough times in Europe. Of course, Russia is a different scenario. But so we are in a crisis, and we need new investments, and we need business angels. OECD has launched a report just 6 months ago, and the OECD says there are 2 ways to increase angel investment in a quick way: tax breaks and co-investment funds. So we are going to talk especially about co-investment funds. And sometimes people say, yes, but in US, you don't need that. The ecosystem works there. Okay, I must tell you, ACA is the IBAN in US, has launched a proposal for the US Congress to have a 25% tax break, federal tax break. So we are not so far away from the US in that scenario. So I would like to invite to my guests. So first we'll have Lubov Malyarovskia. It's a difficult name to pronounce. He's from BDO. BDO is an IBAN partner for research, and since 3 years ago we have been launching a co-investment fund report and the tax break report with the BDO. So for IBAN members, you can go to the website and the internet and you can see. Yeah. And you can see these reports that are very, very well done. Second, we will have Nelson Gray. I think he doesn't need the presentations, but for the Russian part, he was Business Angel of the Year in 2008, and is from Link, Scotland, and is well known for his humor. So we hope to see some humor about Nelson Gray. One of the nice shots that Nelson says is when it says, there is a slide of Nelson says, when there is a time, just leave the doors, leave the keys on the door, call this guy and disconnect the electricity if the electricity has not disconnected. So this is the exit, the typical exit that Nelson talks. Then we have Mikhail Tsigankov from a Russian venture company. And the last one is, I think has not arrived yet, is José Figueiredo, is the president of AECM. So I think he will be with us shortly. So, Lubov, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, the name and surname are very difficult for foreigners, I can admit. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like, first of all, to thank you. For your attention, thank you for coming, and I would like to stress that this is a special honor for us to accommodate Congress today here in Moscow. And especially this is a special pleasure for me and for BDO to participate in Congress and also to continue the partnership as a research sponsor. What I would like to speak today, I would like to say a few words about the recent research that BDO Portugal, in partnership with IBAN, has performed. As it was said before, the research is devoted to the tax incentives and both to co-investment funds. So, and then of course, as being rational, I'll say a few words and make a few insights in the Russian situation and maybe share a few words about our experience. As you probably know, and as I have mentioned before, BDO has participated together with IBAN in the research devoted to two important factors of success. At least they are considered to be two important factors. These are tax incentives and co-investment funds. They are considered to be quite important due to the fact that they stimulate business angels and their activity. I would like to stress that the first edition of these compendiums, they were first released in 2009 at the very end of 2009 when the whole world suffered from economic downturn. At that time it was the main goal of the publication was just to gather data and to present the harmonized data, harmonized results within the European countries. So according to the compendium on financial incentives, I mean generally speaking regarding tax rates, tax benefits, we could say that this publication covers 31 European countries. And this publication, this data gathering allows us to compare corporate tax rates and personal tax rates within European countries. Generally, it can be said that interesting, where is my presentation? No matter. So generally it can be said that within Europe, usually 8 countries are considered, there are 8 countries which are considered to be more favorable in the area of tax regime. At the same time, we shouldn't forget that also some countries provide generally low tax rate. Also, what can be said? I think that what else can be stressed is that there are some particular markets which can be called like rather dynamic. To rather dynamic markets, we can relate like France and UK. At the same time, there are 2 small markets which are approaching or which are achieving. These are Spain and Portugal. Spain, we can declare that it has made quite significant efforts, and also Portugal. Recently, it has declared that it has established a special fund, public-private fund, and also it has declared some tax benefits, specifically dealing with tax reduction specifically for business angels. So what we can admit is that such developments and such good results definitely can be achieved only due to stubbornness, I would say, and special efforts of business angels and business angels network. And then a few words about compendium on co-investment funds. So regarding this publication deals with some 48 investment funds which were specifically selected by EBAN from European funds of different types. Generally, the greater part of these funds is represented by private public funds, and most of them deals with only national investments. Usually the topic is about the funds of no more than 10 million euros. And a little bit to close the topic regarding these publications, I would like to stress that they deal with such factors like due diligence, which is more important for partners, for funds, which also deals with the role of federation and the business angels, and of course the role or the way of economic model. Then I guess it is the right time to say a few words about the Russian perspective and what kind of fiscal incentives we have in Russia. This is a very interesting topic, just because if previously we speak about tax rates, 2 minutes. I have to be very quickly. So we have some, in 2 words, I would say that we have some, of course, tax incentives, but generally, usually they are a little bit theoretic, because for most of innovative companies, they don't deal with capital gain or they don't deal with dividends. They usually deal with profit tax, VAT tax, and payroll tax. But some bureaucracy doesn't help, to develop significantly. So, and another 2 words. Good, thanks. So, also I would like to stress there are to say a few words about seed capital and which issues we usually overcome within our day-to-day work. And usually we could see that there are plenty of ideas, and the major problem is that it deals with the question which idea to choose, and it is very difficult at the very early stage to envisage the revenue and the development. That is why usually valuation is also the issue, and when we deal with it, we usually work with our international offices, and we base on international experience. In our day-to-day life, we mostly deal with early stage investments, when early stage companies, when company has about 2-year history. It's growing quite fast, and usually we provide due diligence for our clients, which are investors. And it helps a lot in order to get the global picture of the company, to understand major drawbacks and obstacles. And one of the major outcome of the due diligence is that the actual results declared by the current owners and top managers are significantly different from those, I would say, official results and declared in statutory accounts or statements. And before I finish with some closing, I would like to quote Steve Jobs, who said that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from non-successful ones is pure perseverance. So, dear all, I would like to stress that we know what is stubbornness and perseverance because we are the 5th largest international accountancy chain in the world. And we are represented in 110 countries, maybe more. Maybe yesterday there were some difficulties. And I would like to thank you for your attention. And if you have questions, of course, you are welcome. Thanks.
Hello. So now we have Nelson, and in the end we will have time for question and answers. So if you have some questions, you just prepare them in order to make them to the speakers.
Don't know. Or do I point it at?
Not worry.
Does anybody know how to work this?
Yeah,
To? Oh, it's gone. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at that screen. I didn't see it.
I had the same problem.
Oh. Sorry, I can. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's great to be here, if a little intimidating. You heard I'm from Scotland. Scotland's about 25% of the size of Moscow, so you understand that I'm not used to speaking to a big crowd of people. Normally the audience is made up of my family and animals. Scotland is, of course, a small but beautiful country. We have fantastic scenery. We have rivers full of salmon. We have a very friendly people. Basically, it's a fantastic place to live. Unfortunately, when God created Scotland, the French complained that they'd made Scotland, given Scotland far too many good things. So God looked at Scotland and I wondered how he could rectify and make this more balanced. So he gave us the English as our neighbours. I still can't work this. I don't know. Right. Co-investment funds. I've been involved in co-investment funds for quite a long time. Scotland's original co-investment fund I started running back in 1999, although we almost didn't know that it was a co-investment fund. We now have a successor to that, which is called the seed fund and other things. We have also just introduced in England last October an English version of a co-investment fund, and there's one for Northern Ireland as well. So we actually currently operate at least 3 different versions of a co-investment fund within the United Kingdom, and I think that's actually quite important. I'll come back to why there are so many different ones. Come on. Somebody's having a laugh here. It's not me.
We need a PowerPoint training ready.
Right, here we are. I'm not going to go through the details of how the different funds work. I presume everybody's going to get copies of the slides. So I've put a reference up on the top of how you can go and look up how the co-investment funds operate in practice. The Scottish Co-Investment Fund is also one of the few funds that has been subject to a formal economic impact assessment, and the reference for that is also up on the slides if somebody wants to pull it down. We actually have 3 effective co-investment funds operating at different levels. There's a seed one, there's one in the middle for angels, and then there's a higher one which actually co-invests with venture capitalists, and the idea is to encourage more VCs to come to Scotland. I'm going to concentrate on the middle one because that's particularly for business angels. The thing that I would point out is that the co-investment fund itself makes no investment decisions. What it does is it analyses and assesses the ability of groups of business angels and then allocates to those business angels an amount of money, which those business angels then go and invest on their own. And it's pretty much an automatic investment process. So if my group of business angels decides they want to do an investment deal using co-investment money, we simply pledge our money and we draw down the co-investment money from the Scottish Government, and the process takes maybe 14 or 15 days. They do no due diligence, they just trust us. And it works very well. Thank you. See, it wasn't just me. Okay, I think so. So you're pointing it there?
Yeah, I'm pointing.
Somewhere over there. Okay. Does the co-investment fund work? I would say that the co-investment fund is evidenced as operational because under the UK government statistics, although Scotland only has 8% of the UK population, the UK government believes that we do about 29% of the visible angel investing within the UK. There's lots of angel investing which isn't included in that. That's private deals, things that are done almost in secret. But as far as entrepreneurs are concerned, visible, easy to identify business angels are the important thing. And we're doing 25 to 29% of the UK total with 8% of the population. I think it's also relevant to note that in the year 2009-2010, the UK, or the English, angel investing went down about 25%, and actually the Scottish level of investing went up about 4%. I think that's pretty significant. Wrong way. At least it's working now. Okay. There is, however, an extra factor. This is not just a co-investment fund effect. The reports produced by the government suggest that it's a factor, it's a combination of 2 things. One, it's the co-investment fund, but secondly, it's the way our business angels are organised into investment clubs, as opposed to simple networks. So our angels tend to form into clubs that habitually invest together, doing multiple deals together, and that gives them capacity and speed. And that's what's been identified as making the big difference in the Scottish numbers. So simply putting a co-investment fund into a marketplace without educating and developing the marketplace will probably have relatively limited effect. The current co-investment fund went into Scotland in 2004, and the graph shows the number of deals done by the Link network each year, just before and just after the impact of the co-investment fund. And I think you can see that the impact has been very significant. The number of deals has gone up dramatically from being relatively flat and actually declining before the co-investment fund came in. I think there's pretty good evidence that you should see a good effect from a co-investment fund going forward. However, I think that you can't simply go and copy the current co-investment model for Scotland and parachute it into a new country, because we didn't start simply giving money and trusting business angels. When I ran the initial co-investment fund, we actively managed it. We made the investment decisions. But the trick was that we were given a double mandate: manage the fund, but educate the market. So my job was to find as many co-investment partners as possible, but effectively business angels, and help them do their first deals. Explain to them how to do due diligence, explain to them how to do valuation, and get as many private individuals involved in the deals as possible, even if my fund could have done all of the funding required. It was a deliberate drive to build capacity and skills within the marketplace. And I think that's a very important additional factor that should be added into the mandate for anybody running a co-investment fund. So a couple of specific issues. I will not be popular by the end of some of this, I suspect, with some of my fellow angels. As I said, it should be about more than simply providing money. It should be about building capacity and skills within the environment. I personally believe that in an ideal environment, the co-investment fund should not subsidize the risk of the angels, because I think that distorts the deal going forward. In an ideal situation, I prefer the tax mechanism to provide a tax incentive to persuade people to come in, and that provides a risk offset to becoming a business angel. In some jurisdictions that's not possible, therefore I can see that some co-investment funds have to provide a risk assessment, but I would prefer not to. I do not believe that VC-type fees are appropriate for angel funds. The 2.5% carried interest, I think it's just a piece of nonsense in co-funds, because actually, to co-funds working properly, it's the angels who are doing the deal assessment, the monitoring, etc., and the manager's role is relatively passive. And it takes a heck of a long time to get to an exit from an angel deal. So I would not do that type of funding. I think many of the angel deals I see set up within the, the co-funds set up within the European structure are too small. 5, 6, 7 million pound co-funds, I think, are far too small to carry an environment, carry deals for long enough. And many of the ERDF funded deals are too short. They're only 5 years long, and you don't have time to follow your money through. I personally would prefer not to use individuals. I know the European Bank is using individuals as co-partners. I prefer to use groups. I'm concerned that individuals may not have the capacity and the willingness to keep with a deal for long enough. And I would do a review every 6 months to make sure that the co-fund partners are actually investing their money. And if they're not investing the money, I take it off them and give it to somebody else. And I also say, why is there an obsession, in my view, with a pan-European fund? We all have angel markets that are at different stages of development. Within the UK, we have angel markets at different stages of development. We therefore have 4 separate structures of angel fund. I personally don't believe that we need or ought to even have a pan-European fund. It should be delivered in a local manner, taking into account the local needs of angel investors there, and developed locally at the speed of the local market. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson. Now it's time for Mikhail to talk about Russia, the developments and the ecosystem as well.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to actually overview the recent developments in the ecosystem in Russia in terms of the new initiatives and mechanisms of the seed financing for startups. In fact, I've been looking at this ecosystem for the last 5 years, and I was involved quite actively at the seed stage in the software space and internet, as I worked at Microsoft on the initiative to support the creation and development of the startups. But over the last 18 months, I actually observed enormous development of the offerings, both coming from the public state side and from the private one. Sometimes there are initiatives which are public-private collaboration, and the state and some municipal, local governments, they develop programs to foster the financing of the very, early seed stage innovative companies here. So just to name a few, Paula has already mentioned, and well, actually, NABA, this National Association of the Business Angels, they have a couple of new initiatives with FASI. This is the Foundation for Support of Small Innovative Enterprises, and basically this is one of the oldest, I would say, organizations distributing grants to innovative companies here in Russia. In fact, I think this year it's 20 years after the setup of FASI. And right now, NABA is entering into the collaboration with FASI to leverage these grants together with the angels' investments. Right now, the situation in the angel space in Russia is that I would say there is not enough angels, those people who can be smart money at the very early stage, especially in the technology field. And at the same time, of course, there is a lack of this seed capital, which you know can be attracted by startups. And in order to fix that, and in order to develop the ecosystem, all these public initiatives, they are being created. So this leverage of the grants. Another story which is about the deal flow sharing, when local venture funds they are ready to share their deal flow with you know, selected groups of angels for co-investments. And in fact, some angels they operate quite you know, big capital, like dozen millions. So they can really do early stage investments by themselves, and sometimes it happens, but they really need some support from experienced investors who know how to structure these kind of deals. And this is all about the education and forming the community, you know, the growing up the knowledge and experience on how to do investments. Also, I would like to tell about, you know, local, somewhat, you know, localized initiatives like launching the pre-seed fund, investment fund in St. Petersburg. It's the St. Petersburg government initiative, and there is a quite good incubator and actually a future technopark called Ingria. And last year, it was like 6-7 months ago, they've launched the pre-seed fund, which is working on the base of Ingria incubator. The Moscow government just last week announced a new initiative on the convertible loans for the startups which are which attract investments from qualified investors. And the Moscow government right now is running this selection process to have the first wave of qualified investors to give this loan leverage to them. And in fact, this initiative is already in between, the tax, tax breaks or grants and the investments, because it's convertible loans which can be converted into the shares of the startups, and in fact, interest rate is relatively low. It's about 12% per annum, which is lower than it's possible to attract from banks here. And I expect very good traction within the first half a year of the execution of this program. And Moscow government is developing their grant programs, of course, at the same time. It's been already in the market for a few years, and this year they're changing a little bit the conditions, and they plan to fund 800 startups by the end of this year. Now I would like to talk about the private initiatives, and the last fall was full of events in this regard, and in fact we experienced the launch. Yeah. Launch of the couple of the incubators. One is TextDrive, which is Techstars model here, which was quite successful. Very interesting experience. Good projects, and very quick cycle of the incubation. And the gentleman who actually launched it, I can see him sitting over there. So you can ask him about his experience later on. Another private initiative is the Farminers. This is the virtual, it's not that virtual incubator, but it's the program to accelerate the limited number of internet startups and help them to start selling in the United States. So they just play a role of the bridge between business ideas here, development team here, and the marketing and sales in the United States, in the target market. Yeah, so I think my time is over, right?
So we have time now for question and answers, and we have now Bill Payne already with a hand. And just to complement what was said in the European Commission and the European Investment Fund, there is this initiative in Germany that is led by BAND, that Ute is here as well, and that is a start for something that can be also very interesting. So, Bill.
My name is Bill Payne. I'm from the U.S., and I'm one of the animals that worships at Nelson Gray's feet. I would like to tell him that I agree with him on every single issue that he had on his specific issues page, and suggest that others pay very close attention to the issues he had there. I have one or two questions for Nelson. They relate to returns. So from your earlier funds, can you tell us what the returns experience has been for those funds, and where those returns go that are returned to the state portion of the investment? Hello? Is it working?
In relation to returns on the fund I was able to run in 1999, I was very fortunate that European funding was given to me under an ERDF grant, and the European Union did not actually wish any of the money to be returned to them. And I'm pleased to be able to say that I did meet that KPI. I think one of the problems with the co-fund, and we're looking at that in relation to the one that started in 2004, is that co-funds and angel investing last longer than a government is in power for. And they get very impatient with seeing the results. And that has to be managed quite carefully. And it is also then offset against the fact that economic development people don't want any exits, because they see an exit as being a company disappearing. So it's actually very, very difficult to satisfy our political masters with returns. But we've had some very good ones and we've had some disastrous ones. It looks like an angel portfolio.
Okay, more question? Yes. You have the mic over there, please.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Andrija Bednarik. With my two colleagues, I'm the representative of Serbian Business Angel Network. We are here for the first time on IBAN Congress. We just became members this year, and we are glad that we are going to try and give a chance to contribute to the organization. Especially, we are very active in the region of Balkans and Southeastern Europe now, cooperating with business angel networks, Slovenia and Croatia, now helping building 2 more business angel networks in Bosnia and Macedonia. And we are promoting now this cross-border investments, because all these markets are really comparable, and we can really have a good cooperation there. My question is to Mr. Nelson Gray, and you were talking about current status in Scotland about this co-funding, and it's a really fortunate situation that you have only 14 days now between initiating the investment and matching grant from the government. But in our situation is totally different. We don't have this co-investment fund, and now we are trying to lobby within the Serbian government about this. And I would like just to ask you about the advice. So is this initiative should come from the business angels, or who should we tackle at first, and how should we negotiate this?
I think the initiative has to be taken by the business angels, but you need to explain why it works using data like we have to your economic development people, and then come to the likes of Scotland and take our data, which has been prepared independently of the angels, and show that to the government, because the government won't believe you as a business angel. Well, you would say it will make things better. But fortunately, we've now got hard data that does show that it makes a huge difference. So take that data and adapt the models that we have. And I can give you more references if you want.
Okay, thank you very much. And we would like to invite you also to come and maybe to give the presentation about
this is private. All right.
Okay, thanks.
More questions? No? No more questions? So in terms of a question for the Russia, how do you see that these co-investment funds can evolve in Russia? Do you think it will be regional, or do you think the central government can help, can have a central role in this process as well?
Well, in fact, as I said already, the role of the government, both federal and the regional, is in setting up the measures to help the ecosystem, to start up. In fact, this very, quick development and the creation of new initiatives over the last, couple of years is the result of the programs that government has created, and from the private sector, which sees opportunity for launching new things. And this is all about the finding the tipping point when the actually government with their leverage money can help investors to really start doing deals on regular basis. And it will happen both on federal and on regional level. In fact, on federal level, for example, I work at RVC, and we have our daughter fund, the seed fund of the RVC, and it works in collaboration with investors. So each project which seed fund is investing in has to be also invested by the private investor at the same time. The ratio is 75% from the seed fund and 25% from the investor, which is quite good leverage. But anyway, we would like to see the we would like to see the interest from the market side. We would like to actually this project to go through the smoke check of real investor.
Okay, so Luba, what is your opinion about the Russian market?
Just a few words. I would like to say that definitely if we have a kind of a sign or a message from the state, that will definitely help private investors to feel the good climate, the good atmosphere, and it will help, it will influence the attitude, it will influence the investments. This is why, first of all, good message from the state and from either federal or regional government will help and will improve the climate, the investment climate, definitely.
Thank you. So we are done. We'll have Martin announcing the lunch, what we all expect. And I would like to ask a round of applause for our distinguished guests.
Thank you very much. We've gone over time, so we no longer have an hour and a half for lunch. We just have an hour. So you know the food is served in the Progress Bar, which is just here on the right. So you come out and turn right and right again. There's some lovely food waiting for you there. Regarding the breakout sessions, they are not in the same room as the number of the session. For example, session 2 is in room 5, so it's a little confusing. So I'll just go through the individual sessions, and if you can take note of what room they're in, because it's not the same number as the number of the session. There you go, only in Russia. There we go. The breakout session number 1 is actually in room 1. And it's the session about the public financial mechanisms used to support and stimulate the early stage market in Europe and Russia. Breakout session 2 is in room 5. And also, so you know that the rooms are here behind us in the far right-hand side and at the end. And outside all the rooms, there's a screen which actually has all the information on as well. So just to say that breakout session 2 is in room 5, and that's titled How to Find and Grow a Yandex. Thirdly, we've got breakout session 3, which is in room 2. And that is cross-border investments and international syndicates. Breakout session 4, which is also at 2 o'clock in an hour's time, is in room 3. So that's breakout session 4 in room 3, early stage investing, the role of crowdfunding. He seems excited here. Oh yes, it's yours. Frank Peters, yes, of course, we know. He'll be very, very popular there. The man in the white jacket. And finally, the breakout session 5 is in room 4, and that's the early stage investing, the role of accelerators. And if you find that confusing, all the information is in front of the rooms. And
you mentioned
yes,
breakout session 1, which is mine, which is far more interesting than anything.
you see this competition, room 1, room 1. All the information is there. Enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you in an hour's time.